And we're live.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Committee on Legislation, Tuesday, January 26, 2021. Councilmember Farrelletto,
Here.
Councilmember Golumback,
Here.
Councilmember Nowakowski,
Present.
Councilmember Rivera,
Present.
Councilmember Scanlon,
Present.
Council President Pridgen,
Here.
Councilmember Bowman.
Present.
Quorum is present.
From the top.
Item number 1, food store license, 904 Broadway.
Motion to approve.
Hold on one second, Majority Leader. Can you just approve with conditions that there is no alcohol or tobacco to be sold on the property and that they close by 8 p.m.? I've already talked to the applicant and we have agreed to that. It's a new store that'll be on Broadway that's helping serve the Burmese community and the ethnic and wonderful foods to help that community thrive. So motion to approve with conditions. And if the city clerk can also send those conditions to Judy Porto in inspections, that would be great. Thank you.
Motion to approve with conditions set by council member.
Seconded by Councilmember Scanlon.
Item number 2, secondhand dealer, 2034 South Park.
Motion to table.
Motion to table seconded by Councilmember Nowakowski.
Item 3, school zone safety program.
Items open.
This item is open. What we are discussing here is an email that was sent to Councilmember Wyatt. I believe it was an unsolicited email from someone who signed off as a traffic prosecutor, and he was invited to attend this meeting today, as was Commissioner Helfer. We requested that they come. I was advised earlier today that Commissioner Helfer is not going to be coming to the meeting today. So we're going to be requesting that he is at the meeting again in 2 weeks. And I know Peter Reese is here to speak on that item. So we'll open it up to Peter Reese. And then if there's questions or other people that want to speak on it, we will open it up at that point. Mr. Reese, you have the floor.
Unmute. All right. Yes, thank you, council members. Appreciate an opportunity to present to you. I saw that agenda item and it bothers me very much because the individual has identified himself as a traffic prosecutor, and yet he is also a hearing officer. In traditional hearing matters, you essentially have a judicial situation where there is a judge, a hearing officer, a magistrate who hears the case, is impartial, makes the decision. There's a prosecution and there's a defense. I'm a defense attorney. I and other attorneys that I've been working with are 9-0 at the Hearing Bureau on the traffic cams. But at the last hearing that I had, it became very clear that the hearing officer was also acting as the prosecutor. And it's as simple as I start out with my standard check sheet asking whether the city has proof that notice was mailed timely within the 14 business days. It says in the statute that acceptable proof of that is a computer or manual log of mailing. There was no such log available. The hearing officer actually left the room and went and apparently looked at a computer system, which I was not allowed to see, which was not brought into the hearing room, and came back and said, well, notice was mailed timely. And I said, well, that's absurd. I want to see it here. I'm here for the hearing. Where's the prosecutor? Where's the city? It's very clear that the hearing officers in the Traffic Bureau are also acting as prosecutors. This is totally unacceptable. It is unethical under a code of conduct for lawyers. And it can't be much simpler. You can't wear both hats. Everyone can understand that. Now, This probably never became an issue or came out in the past because we were talking about parking tickets. Now we're giving very serious moving violation tickets, speeding tickets in a school zone to automobiles. And if you read the statute, it's a handbook for what the city has to have at the hearing. They don't have a prosecutor there. They only have a hearing officer, and they don't have at the hearing the items of information they need to make and to prove their case. That's one of the reasons why I and the compatriots are 9-0. This situation just stinks. There's no other way to put it. It's terrible. It was never good when it was parking tickets, but now that we're seeing thousands of tickets, this is out of control. What I sent to you via an email, which I hope was distributed around, was the letter which this individual sent, and the most recent decision which I got on my wife's car, in which this person was the administrative hearing officer. Now, I understand there are separate tribunals, et cetera, but you can't have a hearing of any manner, shape, or form. Now, I hope that staff made available to you a definition of hearing, which is out of Black's Law Dictionary, which is about as basic as you can get. And basically, it is a proceeding of relative formality, generally public, with definite issues of fact or of law to be tried, in which parties preceded against have the right to be heard, and is much the same as a trial and may terminate in a final order. This, in effect, is a judicial proceeding, which is going on here. What's going on now today is a kangaroo court. I'm sorry, can't give it any other word than that. I would suggest that the council subpoena the audio of the proceeding, because I actually challenged the hearing officer. It's the first time in 47 years I ever asked a judge, are you appearing today as the hearing officer and the prosecutor, or both? This individual never answered me. I mean, this just isn't acceptable. This is the sort of thing that, left unchecked, leads to incredible distrust of government. And eventually it leads to hooligans attacking the Capitol. I don't think we can underestimate this. This is not proper governance. It's not a proper judicial proceeding, and someone needs to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Councilmember Wyatt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Reese. You've been on this thing from day one, out in the streets, using your time to video some of the discrepancies that we've been questioning on the council. And I think that this gentleman who sent me an email thought that my head just pops on and off. And it's very upsetting because the very point you made is the point that he made to me in writing. And so again, we put forth the resolution to pause this, and they refuse to pause it, even though this thing is disjointed and out of order. And then they refuse at the time when they're caught, when the Buffalo News publishes an article about lawyer question dual roles of prosecutors, judges, and city court, traffic court. You just can't make this stuff up. We're a city, we're the second largest city in the state of New York. And as Mr. Reese said, it's almost like we're a kangaroo city, a kangaroo court, because we can't get some of the simplest things done. It incenses me that people are still questioning, or we have people on one side saying, hey, having the beacons on all day is a good thing, it's okay. Well, it ain't okay, because the public understood this as the beacons would be on when I can be enforced, when I can get a ticket. So now there's all this confusion, and then we go into the court system where people can't be heard, who have called these numbers to have a hearing, can't be here, but then they're getting tickets saying that the ticket was overturned, and then they're getting a bill. This thing is a total mess. And for someone to sit and think that this is okay to continue this way, for whatever reason, is just beside, I don't even know what to call it. You know, and I guess I just call it stupidity, because for you to feel like in the pandemic to confuse people even more, and then to come out and go to the press saying, oh, this is our new improved system, but the system is broken from top to bottom. And we need to put this on pause, and we need to be more forceful in doing it because people are still suffering. And here they're looking at rolling out, schools are supposed to open February 1st, and then we're gonna turn all the cameras on. So then what's gonna happen? We're gonna make other excuses for why this should go forward when we haven't fixed some of the fundamental things, like putting a sign up, letting people know when the enforcement is taking place. It's not all day. I can't get a ticket all day. There's certain times during the day, but you have a sign up that confuses people. So again, this attorney or whoever he is, this hearing officer who dared to send me some document proving our point of how mismanaged this program is, and then from the very letter of the law, the things that we were fighting under the Trump administration, about the separation of justice and attorney generals, and we let these same things happen in the city of Buffalo in a traffic court, is absurd, and we should be ashamed. I'm not ashamed because we continue to fight the good fight, but for the administration to continue to allow this to happen and think that it's okay in the midst of a pandemic is shameful. It's absolutely shameful. And we need to do more. So I'm going to be presenting a letter from one side for Cisco to give us information that we haven't gotten. Have the 20,000 people who have gotten tickets illegally been refunded? I'm hearing that they're not. So when is that going to happen? There's so many pieces to this thing. And then we're looking at going forward on February 1 with more cameras. We got to be insane. We got to be insane. So that's my comments, Mr. Chair. Mr. Reese, thank you so much for your efforts because we continue to be on the front line to fight this issue. We need to eliminate these cameras, long and short. And if there's a contract issue, let them come back and take us to court. But at the end of the day, this is a freaking mess. And our citizens are suffering in the midst of a pandemic over this mess because the administration would not heed to the comments of the council to be a part of the rollout. So we can all make sure that this is done well. The city's gonna make a few dollars, but it shouldn't be at the behest of being just arrogant that we're gonna do this the way we want to, and the heck with the citizens. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the item?
Mr. Chair.
Council President.
Mr. Chair, just a question because I'm looking at the email that Mr. I believe it's Villegas sent to Councilmember Wyatt. And he says in here that he would make himself available to the council. I don't know if he was invited to come because since he authored the letter, I think he should speak to the letter and of this. I may have missed a piece. I'm multitasking. Did we find out from our corporation counsel whether this person should be able to hold both of these positions? Did I miss that?
Assistant Corporation Counsel Karen Gordon. I don't believe the question was asked of me.
Okay.
But based on the discussion and the letter that I read and the opinion that Attorney Peter Reese sent, I really don't feel comfortable to make a distinction right now because the letter that Peter Reese stated actually referred to instances where you had a situation where there was, I'm sorry. Morgan,
we all have to deal with it. It's okay.
1 minute.
Well, I can just chime in quickly. He was invited. We did ask that he comes to this meeting and speak, and I was informed that he was unavailable to come to the council meeting today. And the question that I would have had for him in the letter that he sent to Councilmember Wingo, Councilmember Wyatt.
Councilmember Wyatt.
We have recently been joined by Councilmember Wingo with the email that was sent to Councilmember Wyatt. He refers to himself in two different instances as a traffic prosecutor. So we know that he's a hearing officer. So my question is does he think his role as a hearing officer is also to be a prosecutor? Which I don't know because he's not here to answer that, but he clearly refers to himself as a traffic prosecutor and not a hearing officer. So that's what I'm concerned about, and that's what I think we need certainly some clarification on that. And if the commissioner has definitions on what they instruct their hearing officers to do or how they handle themselves, because it appears, and again, I don't mean to make assumptions, but it appears from the email that he believes his role is to be a prosecutor. So I know.
And I think the Corporation Counsel is back.
Yeah, I also believe, Councilman Farrelletto, that the office of the Traffic Bureau have two different functions. It functions as the Traffic Violation Bureau, but I think with the advent of the new traffic cameras, it also has that dual role. So I think it's a question, I guess, that we could probably get some more clarification on to find out exactly how they're operating, but they are actually functioning as two entities. And I could see how there's a possibility that that individual might be doing both things at certain given times. But then the big question would be, is he adjudicating the same tickets that he's prosecuting? And from the letter that I read, it seems like if that's not the case. And from the opinion that Attorney Peter Reese sent, which I think was more specific to situations where they are it's not just a movement violation, but it's a movement violation with a misdemeanor and or some other felony or something attached. And in those cases, those are cases that would be adjudicated by the ADA. And so the question becomes, well, if it's adjudicated by the ADA as the prosecutor for the city or state, then can that person still have dual role when this person is now exposed to an actual criminal conviction, which is different from what is taking place in the Traffic Bureau right now. So yes, I agree that it might need to be a little bit more clarification from the office, but I believe since the office is actually doing both two different things, which it was given the authority to do by the state law, there could be a reason why this individual might be at different times acting in those different roles, but not adjudicating or being a hearing officer on the same tickets that he prosecuted. So I think that's a distinction that needs to be made, but I can't make it because I'm not in the office. But we can get some information on that.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, I think that is important to find out that information. Even if it can be done, I think the optics of it and the fairness of it and the transparency of it and the trust of the system would call for there to be separate persons. We hire people all the time. I'd rather for there to be separate persons permanently. I don't think that role should ever switch from prosecutor and then you adjudicate whether and I believe Attorney Gordon to be correct. However, I think that in this, because this is a very, very, and even if it wasn't a very high profile situation, it is just a fact. I don't want to go into a court of law, and I understand it's traffic, but it's money. It's still money. I don't care. At the end of the day, I don't want to go into a court of law and the person who's sitting on the bench on Monday is the person who's now prosecuting other people on Tuesday, because the mindset is different. For the office, the mindset is totally different from a person who adjudicates and a person who prosecutes. So I think that that's very important. And then, Mr. Chair, my concern is whether next week when school opens, I believe it's next week, many schools open, are we ready? I would have loved to have someone on from the department, whether it was the commissioner or somebody else who could answer these questions. Because I know, for instance, at Makowski, I still don't see the signs ready. I see one light, I believe, that is right on the camera. And I think that when we asked for it to be paused, it wasn't to battle anybody. It wasn't to battle and take a side. It was really to stand up for the people who have been getting these tickets and the cloudiness of this whole situation. So I'm very concerned about next week. I go on the record as stating I agree this needs to be paused. We asked for it to be paused. I still think it needs to be paused. I'll say it again. I'm not saying that it doesn't need to be at all. I'm simply saying it needs to be right. And if we are not ready, I think I would hope, this is my hope, that by next week, when schools open up, I'm not saying don't have school speed zones. I'm all 100% in. I'm not saying don't have the lights on. I'm all 100% in for the safety of our children. But what I'm concerned about is someone who writes us a letter who has dual roles and knowing whether we are prepared. And when I say we, I'm talking about the city of Buffalo is prepared at every one of those locations, because I want you to notice, we've been hearing from hundreds for 5 cameras that are on sometimes and not on sometimes. I believe almost every school that has a camera is going to have some level of being open next week. I don't believe we're ready. I believe it needs to be paused. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Peter Reese.
I understand I'm out of order, but with your permission, I'm the only person here who's actually been in one of these hearings, okay? And I know I'm a rumpled up old lawyer, you know, who's got nothing else to do, but I really believe you need to hear the audio of the hearing that we had with respect to that particular ticket. I was there with my paralegal, Abraham Nasser, who is a law student, and he could not believe what he heard and saw at the hearing. This really needs to come to light. I do not wish to jump on a particular individual. I believe our Parking Violations Bureau has been set up to operate in such a way that the hearing officer is also the prosecutor since forever. And this never really came to anybody's attention because who cared that much about a parking ticket? Now we've dumped an enormous responsibility onto these people, and this operation is not capable of handling it. It was never correct, but it was in the realm of who cared. Now it's important, and quite frankly, it stinks. There's just no other way to put it.
Thank you. Councilmember Wyatt.
Well, Mr. Chair, so what do we do to subpoena that information? Because I think Mr. Reese makes a good point. We need to hear exactly what happened. And so for us to subpoena that information, what will we have to do? Secondly, I want to know is because the prosecutor and the hearing officer one and the same, does that mean that those previous tickets are null and void or they should be thrown out? So that's a question for Corporation Counsel.
Yeah, before we go to Corporation Counsel, just 2 things. I think the first question you had, that's definitely in, both of those questions are answers for Corporation Counsel to answer. And with the hearing officer / prosecutor issue, I know Council President brought up the possibility that this individual on some days serves as a prosecutor and some days serves as a hearing officer. That could be a possibility. Another possibility is he's a hearing officer who believes the role as a prosecutor. And I just think it's important that we find that out as soon as possible. And I know we've asked that they come back in 2 weeks, but I would ask that if they can clarify that to us as soon as possible, so we don't have to wait those 2 weeks and that we get answers to that. Thank you. And now I will go to Corporation Counsel Gordon for the 2 questions that Councilmember Wyatt had, and then to Councilmember Scanlon.
Assistant Corporation Counsel, so are you asking whether you can subpoena the documents?
What's the process of subpoenaing the hearing that Mr. Reese was a part of?
Well, I believe that you would probably have to do a FOIL request to the department, and then the department would get the information to you, because that's normally how you get information, you know, from any particular department, and then the department would look to see if there's any information in there that they can redact, or they have to redact because you don't want to give out personal information, and they want to give out information that it would be specific to that particular case. So I think a FOIL request would be the way to go if you need to get that information.
So if Mr. Reese agrees to us getting that information because he was a party of it, was that a problem if he signs off on a waiver saying, hey, I'm okay with that coming to us?
Well, I believe Mr. Reese probably would be in the best. I mean, he could actually request it himself and then send the information to you. But either way, you can request, I mean, you can do the FOIL request. Anybody under the FOIL Freedom of Information law can, request information from a city or state department, and then that information would get to them within the time. Of course, information that are covered and protected by the FOIL law would not be released. So the department would review it and make sure that whatever information they're given is information that's not protected information, and that a document is redacted so as to prevent any private information from being released.
Mr. Chair, on Council Members Wyatt's and Gordon, may I speak on that?
Yeah, Council President.
Yeah, I don't remember us ever having to FOIL the information because we're a government body. This is a question for Attorney Gordon. Couldn't we just do like we do for every other department for the last 10 years I've been here, that a resolution is submitted by the council to request that information with the deadline on it, voted on the council, and it goes up to the department? Because if we FOIL it and they go through the whole FOIL procedure, they then can set a deadline. I know there's some deadlines, but technically they can charge. At the end of the day, I think that putting in a resolution that just asks for that information, and at the same time possibly asking Attorney Reese to request it, it gives us, he has the information he's requesting, but the council has it. Is that possible, Attorney Gordon?
Well, so in either one of the cases, the situation would be different, right? If you're requesting information from another department of the city as a council body, and you're requesting all the information, that's different. The purpose for the information would be different from what is being requested by Mr. Reese. Mr. Reese is requesting specific information as it relates to, one of his case that he adjudicated. Which I think would be very much different from if you were asking for just the general information, the log of information that takes place in the Bureau. So if you're asking for general information, then you can go through your regular channel. In fact, I think a conversation, picking up the phone and having a conversation with the Bureau should be the easiest way to accomplish that. But if you're asking for the specific information, I think there might be a difference there. And that I cannot speak on particularly, but I would say in those instances, if you're trying to get a recording of Mr. Peter Reese's trial, I think he would be the best person to request that information through the FOIL procedure.
No.
And on that, and that's, thank you, Attorney. So in a court of law, all that information, any person can walk into a court of law and get that information. I think my concern is beyond Mr. Reese's situation. That if this is something that has occurred over and over, the council, and if the council then would have to FOIL it, then would the council be charged for that information?
Generally, information that go between departments are never charged, not to my knowledge. We request information from different departments in the city all the time, and there's no charge there because you're part of the city body, part of the administration. So I don't believe there would be a charge. And as I said, like you've done in many other instances, we could, the council could pick up the phone and call the Bureau and says, or we can do a resolution that says we want quarterly reports from the Bureau for these in these specific areas as it relates to traffic cam speeding, violation tickets. I think that could be requested, and that information could be sent like we've done in numerous other occasions on different issues in the past. So, but if you're asking for that specific information that is to that one point in time, in my opinion, it's different. We have an individual. I think that has more interest in that, and I would say have that individual FOIL what he's asking for, and he has the determination to share it with you. But if you're asking for general information, quarterly report, there's nothing wrong with that. We've done it in the past, and I think that should be fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Wyatt, for allowing me to step in and ask that question before I forgot. Thanks.
Councilmember Scanlon.
Oh, wait, one last thing, because this was on the table. I had asked Ms. Gordon about the legality of the tickets that people have gotten. If we find that this is not legal, will those tickets be thrown out?
I don't know. I don't think I have sufficient information to make a determination on that at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, Council Member Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, a quick question for Corporation Counsel. Karen, the legislation already calls for quarterly reports, right?
I believe those quarterly reports are asked to be sent to Albany, and in my recollection was when we made the decision, or when we passed the law, we said that it would also be sent to the Common Council. So Albany gets it every February or something like that, and the Common Council is also expected to get it as well. So yes, you're correct. The legislation has already called for that.
For quarterly reports, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, it seems that there's a great deal of confusion around this entire situation. And whether that's just strictly confusion or miscommunication, there's a lot of people, whether it's people within the government or just the general public, who are really, really not sure where this stands at this point. And that confusion, whether it's between the public and city government, or whether it's confusion between the Common Council and the administration, or confusion surrounding these hearings and who should be functioning as the hearing officer, the prosecutor, the defender. As I mentioned, this leaves everyone with kind of their hands up in the air asking, how is this going to continue to play out? There's other questions we have, myself and other council members have, about signage and things of that nature that might not be appropriate at this time. And as some other council members have mentioned, next week, the Buffalo Public Schools are stating they're going to return to school, which I would imagine would bring more cameras online, more, in theory, more beacons online, more signage online, and create an even larger headache and more confusion for people. So I know Commissioner Helfer could not attend today. He's usually great about being here. I'm sure it's a legitimate reason he's not here, but he's unable to be here. So we're not able to provide the general public with concrete answers today. And that's concerning to me as a council representative, that we cannot get that information out to people, particularly in those areas if schools are opening back up and new cameras are coming online where they haven't dealt with this over the course of the past year. So again, if we are unable to get this information out to the public in time, in a straightforward manner, which they can understand, and everyone's on the same page in the next week or so, I would hope that the administration and the council could get together to discuss how we can hold off on anything taking place where people would be issued tickets until everything is cleared up. I know some of my colleagues feel the same way, and I'm here to support them on that. So again, for those in the public watching, please keep an eye on, hopefully we can get this thing in order. But again, please pay close attention so we can get this information out to you. Thanks.
Thank you. And just to what Councilmember Scanlon was saying, I firmly believe that if there's a period of time where there's warnings issued at some of the new 15 locations that are, I believe they're supposed to start on February 1st, I think it should be the same citywide. For instance, on Main Street, there's supposed to be cameras going up at Bennett. I don't think there should be a warning period for Bennett High School, but half a mile down the street, it's not a warning period. I think that would further confuse people if some of the cameras are if 5 of them are operating, but 15 are just sending out warnings. I think it's not reasonable to do something like that. We're going to call on Attorney Reese, and then if no one else had any other comments, we will wrap it up at that point. Peter Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quite frankly, I'm sitting here a little outraged. You, the Common Council, are the highest body in the city. The mayor is not a king, either are the commissioners. You do not have to file FOILs to find out what the city is doing. You have a right to all the information. The next guy who walks by City Hall files a FOIL, not you. You have subpoena power. You can subpoena the audio, all right? I do not understand any kind of advice about FOIL or me giving permission. This is utter nonsense. I believe, I don't think the city or the Common Council has issued a subpoena in 40 years. I was involved with the last one. It was about 1982 when they foiled the officers of Western Region off-track betting. I think the Common Council needs to stand up and do their job and get the information and tell the mayor he's not the king and the commissioners are not the kings. And if you need information, you need to demand that you have it. And if they don't respond to your subpoena, you have the right to punish the people and to throw them in jail. All right. I just can't believe what I'm hearing. You're not a powerless body. You are the most powerful body in the city. Please exercise your powers.
Councilmember Bowman, I don't know if you were grabbing your beard or waving your hand. So I want to. Okay.
It's a beard grab. No.
Okay. Councilmember Scanlon, then Councilmember Wyatt.
Just to Mr. Reese's point, and also jumping back to Corporation Counsel's point, I think she was saying that we have the authority to just request the information. If Mr. Reese, as a citizen, wanted, he would have to foil it. And then if we didn't get it, we could subpoena it. Is that correct, Corporation Counsel?
Thank you, Councilmember Christopher Scanlon. Yes, what I was saying to President Purgeon was generally, if he wants to request information, as they've always done before, he can go ahead and do that. We've done it in the past. But as it relates specifically to Mr. Reese's situation, if he wanted those information, he could subpoena, he could foil it, and then he can release it to the Common Council. As you've said earlier, the Common Council has already requested information to be sent to them from the last legislative filing that we did either a year and a half ago. So those quarterly information is probably already on its way. And if it's not, it should be, again, requested, because that was part of the local law that was signed. Albany is also expected to get a quarterly report. And that is why we had all agreed, or at least the council had agreed, that if Albany is getting it, then we should get it as well. So the information might be in the pipeline. And so I think, as I said, you can, maybe the council can pick up the phone and give a, make a call and see if they can get information they're requesting.
Yeah, so I think the next step would be for council staff to reach out to them and request this information. And then if we don't get it, we move forward from there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councilmember Wyatt.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Reese. I totally agree, and I was going to make that point before we transition to the next item, is that Chief of Staff send that request for the audio for this this date. We just need to get the date and request that date for this particular hearing, because I think that's what's simple we have to do, is just request it, and then if we don't get it, we go with a subpoena. But let's put that request in so that we have it on the record and then move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Majority Leader Rivera.
I agree. Excuse me. I agree with Councilmember Wyatt and Mr. Reese. I don't want to go down the route of foiling information. I don't want to set that precedent. Either you give us the information or we subpoena, period. I don't want to go down the road. Now, Common Council is not going to subpoena information from people. No, this is, if Mr. Reese wants to foil it, that is his prerogative. This council is asking for it itself. This body, the Common Council, is asking for the information. My question to Mr. Reese, was the hearing officer acting in both, on that particular case, was he acting in both capacities in the one case?
If I may respond, yes, in this particular case, it was very clear that he was actively trying to make the prosecution's case. And it actually got to the point where he left the room to get information, in particular with respect to timeliness. And then he said to me, well, it was mailed timely, but I can't show it to you. Now, that's like Gene Warmer's double secret probation in the movie Animal House. That's absolutely preposterous. The idea that he's looking at information that I can't see, and yet I'm the defense attorney. I mean, that doesn't happen anywhere other than a FISA court. That's just crazy. What that meant was the city wasn't ready to make its case. And that needed to result in an immediate dismissal of that particular matter. Well, guess what? The hearing officers don't have that information available to show to any of the defendants or their attorneys at the hearings. The hearings are dead right now. Every one of them should be thrown out. Every time someone comes in and says, city, show me that you mailed the notice timely. It says right here in the statute, a computer log or a manual log is good enough. They've got to show it to you right there at the hearing. They're not capable of doing it. Every single one of those cases should be tossed. End of story. That's how our system works. I hope this is still America, but I mean, that's 6 centuries of Anglo-Saxon jurisprudence since before we got to these shores.
Council President,
And now I'll be quick, Chair. And in respect to Ms. Gordon, who I know we throw questions at her so quickly every day that she would have to be a walking law book to be able to know them all. In our charter and the powers of the council, and I quote, to investigate and inquire into all matters of concern to the city and its inhabitants, and to require and enforce by subpoena the attendance of witness or the production of documents at such investigations. So I concur with those who have agreed that first request, because pick up the phone, if it does not happen, this council has the power to subpoena documents of an investigation. This appears to be an investigation. We have, as the charter says, an inhabitant that has requested, it has been picked up by a council member or several council members, and the production of witnesses and of documents is within this council's ability. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
thank you, Council President, and Councilmember Scanlon would like to add some remarks.
Just a very quick question to either Karen Gordon, our Assistant Corporation Counsel Gordon, or to Chief of Staff Eartha. We haven't requested any of this information yet, right?
No, sir, my office is not. We've had no
Okay,
direction to do so until today.
Just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page. I wanted to make sure we hadn't done it yet or anything like that. Thank you.
If I may to add on that, sir, and make sure that we do find the accurate information, Mr. Reese, what was the date of the hearing in question?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but I attached the decision to my communication, my email. I can get it to you again. And again, and pardon me, I'm an old man, but the decision states the date of the hearing. And I can get it to you if you need it. I can even get you the time from my calendar. I just don't have it with me right now, but I will make it available to you.
Thank you, Mr. Reese, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question.
Okay, thank you everyone for your comments on this. If we have no one else to speak, we will table this item.
Motion to table.
Seconded by Councilmember Golumback. Next item.
Item number 4, ordinance amendment, chapter 309, hazardous operation of motor vehicle in park.
Items open.
This item is open and Councilmember Bowman's waving this time. He's not grabbing his beard.
That was a wave, not a beer grab. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is really a progression of the resolution that we submitted last October, which at that point we were really coming off of a hot summer of ATV activity throughout all of our neighborhoods. And, you know, it's been increased activity on our streets, in our parks, and it's been a problem that is really citywide. And I'm realizing that more after submitting the resolution. So with this amendment, we're aiming to not only increase the fine, but the amendment speaks to ownership. If the person, if it was seized by an officer, they would have to provide ownership information, proof that is properly registered, insured before getting it back, which I felt was important. It also speaks to specifications of the ATV to make sure it's in proper working order, you know, all the things that a vehicle would need to make sure it's safe to be operated in the legal places that are allowed to be operated, specified by New York State. So really, this is just a progression. I want to thank Commissioner Helfer, he's been wonderful to work with throughout this whole process and very supportive. Karen Gordon, she did a lot of work for us with forming the amendment. Councilmember Nowakowski has been great, and all my colleagues. I realize that this is a problem that you're all dealing with, and so we were trying to put forward a well-rounded piece of amendment here, and we're open to any further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Majority Rivera.
Thank you very much. Is there, if the person that owns the ATV needs insurance and all his towing fee and storage fee and everything else, does that also include any tickets that the person may have, outstanding tickets? That I want him to pay for everything, basically. That there is no outstanding fees on the part of the person that owns the vehicle that they want to repossess.
Yes. Yeah, it does actually. Commissioner Helfer has that policy in place now as well. So it would be charged. Don't quote me on the numbers, but they get a specific fee for the tow, which I believe is around $100. And then every day in storage, it's $40 or $50 per day it's in storage. So it's a significant fine, significant fee. And once again, that kind of came from Council President in our initial committee meeting mentioning, these vehicles are being auctioned off and circulating back out into the community. So we felt it was important to make sure that they have to show proper documentation that they own it, which I have a feeling a lot of the times that it won't be, able to get back on the street in that circumstance. So yeah, it really is a strict fine, fees you'll encounter. And, it's really just, we needed to do something here. It felt like they were emboldened on our streets, and it's a difficult issue to legislate towards. So yes, thank you. You're on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry. Councilmember Nowakowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. BPD is here to speak on the item if we wanted to give them an opportunity. I know that they can go into why there is a no chase policy, because by chasing these vehicles, it's very dangerous. But I think all that information is very relevant and would help the community be able to address this problem. So I'd like to give the floor to the BPD to any additional remarks.
Thank you, Captain Jeff Rinaldo from Buffalo PD. So, we definitely look forward to any strengthening legislation and rules, restrictions, and laws that can help us to combat this problem. We have seen an incredible uptick. It's continuing even through the winter months. Received a call from a family member who lives in North Buffalo that said 5 of these went tearing down her street last night, actually, and almost struck her car. So we definitely could use any tools that are available to help combat this. We've seen groups as large as 20 to 30 people riding in packs. It empowers them. They feel like they can do whatever they want. They know that we're not going to chase them. But we've also seen some pretty violent crimes committed by people riding these types of motorbikes, up to and including shooting at a Buffalo police officer this past summer. So again, I thank the Common Council for undertaking this legislation. And, we're not looking to take away people's recreational activities. However, it's not made for driving on city streets. I don't even believe that you can license an ATV for public roadways. I don't believe it falls under the limited use vehicle laws like a GEM would. So again, this is dangerous. This isn't kids joyriding up on the railroad tracks. It's people riding these, adults riding these, and causing injuries to pedestrians as well as to themselves. And again, a lot of times these are used to commit very violent crimes. So again, we look forward to seeing the legislation passed and going forward with it.
Thank you. And I just want to thank everyone who worked very hard on this. I know several residents in the Delaware district saw the different news articles on this, and they had called the Delaware office and said, I really hope you support this. This is really a problem all over the city, whether it's the 198, Parkside Avenue, Amherst Street seems to be a street where this happens a lot. So just want to thank all of my colleagues for all of the hard work they put on this. Now we'll go to Councilmember Noakowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to conclude by first thanking Councilmember Bowman, who really spearheaded this effort. And this legislation really is to also protect those that are riding these ATVs. I've been in my district walking on Ashley and Peck and Chustrom and Stanton Street and a plethora of streets where I've seen 3-year-olds, on the ATVs with, their teenage brother or sister, and it takes one pothole and your life could be ended or paralyzed. So yes, these fines are stiff, but this is also this is for the health and safety of neighborhoods, but also those that are operating this, that they're extremely dangerous. And please do not jeopardize your safety or your neighbor's safety or anyone that is operating on the city street safety. And to please take this seriously. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. If there are no other speakers, I will entertain a motion.
Is this an approved motion?
Yes,
Motion to approve.
motion is to approve, seconded by Councilmember Golumback.
1 minute, I'm sorry. Councilmember Bowman, I do believe that we said we were gonna leave this, I could be wrong, that we were gonna leave it on the table for a little bit because we wanted to make sure all the kinks were, properly addressed. I don't know. Did you change your mind? Are you?
I was comfortable as it was.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
I appreciate that, but no, yep, I'm all set.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion stands.
Motion stands. Next item.
Take from the table items 7, 19, and 60.
Seconded by Councilmember Noakowski.
Item 7, zoning map amendment 9 and 11 City Ship Canal from N3E to DIL zone.
Items open.
This item is open. Is there anyone here to speak? I see Steve Ronali is here to speak on this item. Steve, you have the floor.
It is a public hearing.
Motion open public hearing.
Motion is to open public hearing, seconded by Councilmember Scanlon. Steve, you have the floor. I see you're muted. If you would like to speak, now is the time. If you press *6, you should be unmuted.
I think I've unmuted here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's Steve Rinelli with the president of the Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation. And to be honest, I am just here to listen in on this item. I don't have a comment at this time.
Okay, this item is in Councilmember Scanlon's district. Is there anyone else here to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, we will go to Councilmember Scanlon.
Mr. Chair, can we send this without recommendation?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, motion to close the public hearing.
Seconded by Councilmember Scanlon.
Motion sent without recommendation.
Seconded by Councilmember Noakowski.
Item 19, ATV and unregistered recreational use vehicles.
Motion to receive and file.
Seconded by Council President Pridgen.
Item 60, special use 976 Kensington for neighborhood shop.
Motion to approve.
Seconded by Councilmember Golumback.
No other items. Motion to adjourn.
Council, before we adjourn, Council President Pridgen.
Mr. Chair, just real quick, I was just looking over the legislation committee and how many items are still sitting, waiting on information from various departments. There are items dating back all the way to 2016. 2017 things that the council has asked for. With your permission, if it would be all right for council staff, our chief of staff, to pull these out right to departments and get a answer on these items, because for instance, item 79, which is from 2017, in which we asked for a database of dilapidated properties that was asked for. I mean, I want to get some of these out of your hair and off of your agenda, but I think that some things, maybe departments have changed or people have changed, but I think we need a comprehensive update on these items so that some of these questions that were asked can be answered by departments.
That is a great, that's a great idea. I think we'll talk with council staff later today about this, and we'll move forward with that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Seconded by Councilmember Golumback.